Hey YouTube, it's good to see you. Mark Dolfini here. Hope you had a good weekend. I know we're coming on the outside of that, and if you're watching this on after the fact, it's good to see you. I was driving to work today, and I had this kind of thought around doing a. I'm doing a live event on Eventbrite here, coming up in about 26 minutes. So it's the concept of it is around sales and really around the selling conversation. And it's kind of interesting because my background is in accounting. So if anybody has ever worked in the corporate world, you always know it's like there's certain departments that are always at odds with one another. And it's always like accounting against sales. That's just cats and dogs. It's just always the way it is. Like sales guys, they're always out there like, man, they don't understand, accounting doesn't get it. We got to go out there. We got to spend money. And we're all like, oh my gosh, like you're attracting like the worst type of clients. They don't pay, all this back and forth. So anyway, it was just kind of funny that I've developed this skill set because I had to. As a business owner, these are the sorts of things you have to learn. You have to learn lead generation. You have to learn sales, not just the accounting and operational side. You have to be multi-dimensional in your approach to business. So anyway, it was interesting. So I was thinking about this, and I was driving my car, and I pulled up to an intersection, and there was a driver and a passenger in the vehicle that was opposite to me. And I stopped at the stop sign. They stopped at the stop sign, four-way stop. And the passenger of the opposite vehicle waved me on. And I stayed where I was at. Because I stopped and thought about it for a second. Mr. Passenger, you're not the one with your foot on the brake. You're not the one who has the ability to stomp on the gas. And quite frankly, even though you waved me on, it's the driver who is the ultimate decision maker. They're literally behind the wheel. And I thought about this in the context of sales and how that actually would apply is who are the decision makers. And this is really important when you're heading into a sales conversation. So that's what the topic is going to be for today. So who are the decision makers as you're heading into the sales conversation? If you're joining me, hello, it's good to see you. Let me know where you're at if you are joining me. I know I've got a lot of people who are out of the United States, which is interesting. So really quickly, I'm going to share with you this. This I always point the wrong direction. I'll get used to it here on StreamYard. If you are interested in joining a tribe like this to help you navigate things a little bit better, and I put in all sorts of different content in this room. It's a Facebook group called the Time Wealthy Advantage. You can find it. I'll put the link in the description as well. But I just wanted to invite you to that. So if you are interested in following things along, not just outside of YouTube, you're more than welcome to. If you are of the Facebook sort, you are welcome to join. Just don't be a jerk. If you're a jerk, you get the boot. All right. So what are we talking about in terms of decision makers? Well, decision makers are the people who are the ones who have the ability to say, yes, we're going to move forward, and they have the ability to pay for it. If they are the one that say, you might say yes from someone else, but if they don't have the ability to pay for it and they have to rely on someone else, that person over here is not the decision maker. You have to have someone who has both the ability to say yes, to move forward, to allow all the nuances and say yes to all the nuances of the deal, especially if it's a larger ticket item. You may have more things to say yes to. That's really important, absolutely. But you also have the people over here who control the purse strings. If you don't have both of those in the room, you do not have all the decision makers, and that is really, really important. I was working with a interior designer not that long ago, and it was interesting how important it was, and was working with her folks to say, hey, you need to make sure that when you're having these conversations, when you are scheduling these on-site visits, that all the decision makers were there. And they did a pretty good job of that, is making sure that all the people who are involved in the conversation are going to be there when you show up and try to have this selling conversation. So that all starts way back in the lead generation process. When they raise their hand and say, hey, I saw your ad, I saw your website, I saw whatever it was that you put out there, and I like what you have, let's you and I have a conversation. That initial call is really important to make sure that all the decision makers are going to be there. So For example, now this is pretty typical of larger ticket items, but you've got to stop and think about this. It's going to depend on your avatar, because your avatar, let's face it, you may have an avatar where they think $1,000 is a lot of money. You may have an avatar that thinks $1,000 is just a transaction, right? So you got to consider your avatar in this conversation. But if your avatar, let's say your avatar considers this to be a higher ticket item, then having all the decision makers there is going to make a big difference, right? If it's a lower ticket item to them, they may not necessarily have to have all the decision makers there. They'll probably just go, yeah, I'm the decision maker. I'm just going to go ahead and go for it, right? But even for those lower ticket items, you still need to have the decision makers there. Because if let's say that you're marketing to a bunch of 13-year-olds who need a credit card to buy your stuff, they're going to need a credit card from mom or dad, right? I'm using that as an extreme example, but that's true, because they don't have the ability to say yes. I mean, even if they had a credit card, someone else could, put the kibosh on your charge, and now you've got a charge back. So you got to make sure that all the decision makers are there. So regardless if it's $100,000 item or $1,000 item, all the decision makers need to be in the room. So what does that mean? If I'm having, let's say for argument's sake, that my part of my sales process, right? Some part of my conversion tool. In my conversion tool, what I mean by that is the conversion tool is when you're taking them from prospect, or basically from a lead into a prospect. They are now a prospect, and you're trying to convert that prospect into a buyer. So the conversion tool might be a conversation. The conversion tool might be a shopping cart, or it might be a video, or whatever it is. But whatever the conversion tool is, you have to recognize that all the decision makers need to be there. So that's to say, hey, look, let me get some information from you. Tell me about what it is that let's say it's a conversation. So they're saying, okay, I want to have you come out and put an $80,000 addition on my house, which in most markets is a pretty small addition. So let's say that you want to have them come out. So they're having this conversation. And you're saying, okay, cool. Hey, I'm going to come out and I want to have this conversation with you. I'm going to drive to your property, but let me ask you something. Before I do that, who are all the people that need to be involved in the process? Who are all the people that are going to be picking out color schemes, that are going to want to choose the different colors of the shingles on the roof, that are going to want to see the layout before they make any decisions? Who are all those people? And it could be the spouse, it could be the son-in-law who's built every house in America and he's amazing at it and he will happily tell you that. All these people that need to be involved in the decision-making process, right? And saying, okay, cool, because and the reason why that would be important to bring them into the conversation early is so you can say to them, look, my schedule books pretty quickly. I want to make sure that we don't unnecessarily delay things, right? This is really important. You want to ask them that their budget and then for their timeline, how quickly you're looking to get started, how you're looking to have this done. These are the really important questions to ask during that initial call. So that's the time to ask them who all the decision makers are. Now, when you book that time, you say, okay, cool, I'm going to come out and take a look at it, or hey, I'm going to work on your project. When I present this to you, who all needs to see this? When you book that time with them, you'd say, okay, cool, so all of them are available. Yes, because I'll just be honest with you, there's no point in me presenting it to you and have you try to explain it to them, because it never works out. They're just going to find a way to say no. And if I show up and you're not, and all the decision makers are there, no offense, I'm not going to stay, right? I just want you to respect my time like I'll respect yours. And you can say that in a non-jerky way. I know I kind of just said it very quickly there, but it's really important that you do draw that boundary, because when you start having to email quotes and say, hey, I worked on your quote, here it is, and you send it via email, you have just now commoditized your product or service. And that means that you are no different than a bag of sugar over here that sells for $1 and a bag of sugar that over here that sells for 97 cents. In the mind of the customer, you are now a commodity. So you really have to separate yourself. And quite frankly, if you're going to be working with someone that does not honor that, I don't know that that's a customer that you really want. Because if they're not going to honor what you're trying to do, if they're not going to honor your process, and you're just going to say, hey, look, I'm going to respect what you want, but in order to do this, it's important that all the decision makers be there, because I'm going to ask some questions during the presentation, and I need those answers. And if not everybody is there, and you're going to bring this back to them, that's not going to work, right? So it's really important that you get their buy-in, you understand who all the decision makers are early on in the process, and get them right out of the gate during the discovery call. Get them interested in that. Get them to be bought in on the process enough to have that all the decision makers there at all at one time. So that is all I have for that. One quick thing I want to share with you is this here. This is a book bundle that I have, and this is specific to this particular offer. This offer will be available for a while. But once I sell out, I'm not going to put this back up again. This is a book bundle that I have. You'll see the Time Wealthy Advantage over there on the left-hand side of the screen. And those other 4 books there, those are supplement guides that I am offering for purchase on the link in just through YouTube right now. So in addition to these books, so you get the Time Wealthy Advantage guide, Time Wealthy Advantage book. There we go. And then the 4 supplement guides that you see here. There's one on lead generation. There's one on sales. There's one on accounting, and then there's one on using the strategic one sheets. If you are interested in that, I will also include a 45-minute one-to-one coaching session, all for one price. So if you look in there, if you don't want the 4 guides, you don't have to do. You can separate those out. It'll all be self-explanatory when you click on the link, and you can see it in there. So that is all I have. That is all I have for today. If you are interested in having conversations, reach out. But I'd like to hear about what kind of expectations that you have in terms of being a decision maker or having all the decision makers there during the sales process. Have you had issues with this in the past? If so, I'd like to hear about them. That's all I have for today. We'll see you guys next time.